Show.
Right, everyone, welcome back to episode 211 of the 580 Show. This week we have special guest, world champion under 64, Krystal Stancyzk. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess just start with how does it feel? Like, how does you've had what, 2 weeks now since you've become
Yeah.
champ?
Oh
What's
my
it
gosh,
been?
I feel like I've gotten that question 1,000 times, so I feel like I should know how to answer this. Definitely still doesn't feel real. Still feels
Yeah,
like a dream, and also feels like um, back to my normal life.
yeah,
Nothing's changed. Back to my daily routine and working and everything.
yeah.
Um,
Well, it's funny because it's like we put such an emphasis on this, and it's like our favorite hobby, obviously by far, and we put so much time and effort and money and everything into it, and then it's still just like we all got to go back to our day jobs. So it's like
yeah,
you're
and,
100% right.
and especially not having anything lined up. So I built this all year and have like this big high, and now it's just like low.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like for you, I think it's super interesting. I've known you as an athlete for quite a while, just because we before you moved, we only lived what, like probably less than 2 hours apart, and I know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I actually talked about on the OSG episode that I was like so excited when you won. I was rooting for you because like when we did, like, we're doing nationals, I think it was like 2021 when we had the wheelbarrow. You were coming down to our gym to train for it, so it's like
Yeah, yeah.
it's just crazy to see, like, now, not that you weren't like super strong then, but now you're literally the world champion in the
Yeah.
lightweight women. So it's really cool. And like, one note I had was um like, you've been so close to like those titles so many, like, I know a couple years ago you had such an amazing performance at the Arnold, and then like PSL podium, the first ever lightweight Shaw Classic top four, and then like you finally get
Yes.
this big win. So I'm sure that it was like a huge relief, right?
Yes. Yes, definitely. I feel like everything just pretty much lined up and was in my cards. My opinion, I had a perfect weekend,
Yeah.
you
Well, I
know,
would say
and
so.
it's just how everything lined up. You know what I mean? If you talk about Shaw, if you talk about PSL, it's like, even at PSL, it really came down to those events that were multiple points, like the bag throws. If I would have gotten that last bag over at PSL, that would have gave me at the very least 6 points, and that would have tied me for second place. That's how close it was. Same
Right.
with Shaw Classic. It was just like one thing could have made a 1 point difference.
Yeah. That's the beauty and the crappy part about strongman, I guess, is like,
Yeah,
it's one thing I like about it is like powerlifting's almost predetermined, like in total, and then strongman, it's
yeah.
like one small thing, shifts a podium by, an entire podium. So I think that's cool. Now, when you saw, like, when OSG the events got announced, and were you like, these are my events? Like,
Yeah.
you saw them
Yes.
and you looked at, because it's funny, like, as athletes, you see that and you see a show and you're like, shit. Like, whether it's the event or the weight or a mixture of both, you're like, shit, that probably sucks for me personally, or it's just
Yes.
not as in my cards. Like, so you just looked at him, you're like, man, I did you think like I have a real shot to win OSG?
I don't like to set high expectations on myself. That's just how I am. I People tell me I need to change a little bit and set higher expectations, but I feel like then I don't disappoint myself as much. But definitely wasn't thinking like, oh, I can win this. But with the four prelim events, I was like, there's no way unless I hurt something. There's no way I'm not making a top 10 this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, your guys' class is just, in my opinion, this is no knock on any of the other women's class at OSG, but I do think your guys' class is just it's the deepest and the most competitive, where like you could see, someone that is outside the top five and winning, you know what I mean? It's just like you
Hmm.
guys have so much depth, and it was a really fun class to watch. But then on the other hand, I think, I didn't fact check, but I think you were the only one who was in first the whole entire 3 days. I don't think you ever lost your first
Um,
place finish, did you?
no, I did not because I won the first event. I did not fall out of first place at all 3 days. There might have been, I want to say, one of the masters classes. I want to
Oh,
say
okay. Yeah,
Claire.
yeah,
I think Claire Myler win the masters class. I want to say she might have been someone just without looking that might have been
yeah.
in first place. But
But I mean, at least for
yes,
the
I
open, yeah,
you don't see that.
yeah.
And
So
that is something definitely that I don't think a lot of people knew. I don't think really anyone knew that.
yeah. Did you?
And thankfully, because I won the first event, I was just in such a great lead. That uh, the wrecking ball hold, which no one knew how the wrecking ball hold was going to go. I wouldn't really even call it a mistake on my end. But I did place ninth out of 10th in that event. And just because I was super, super consistent on those other, 5 events, that I was still in a great lead, even though I got ninth out of 10th in that
Yeah,
event.
yeah. What's your thought? Like, what's your thought process on how the scoring goes? Like after day two, because they do the we finish day two, and then we all have that Excel sheet, and you're like, okay, Krystal has 126 points, and she's up, and then they recalculate based on who you were competing against. I think it's, I think it's pretty cool. I do think it's, you know,
I would like to explore other options.
yeah, yeah. So I've heard
And
that from other people. I understand the line of thinking for it, but I do understand the cons against it.
yeah,
As
because you
well.
see people that's like, oh, they're a really great athlete. They got third in the prelims, and suddenly they dropped to seventh or whatever in the
Yeah.
finals because of the
No,
reshuffle.
well, I actually think there was an instance where there was someone, and it was an open male class, and they were third going into at the end of day two, and then at the start of day three they were ninth.
Yeah,
And it's like, man, that would suck so bad. But
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I understand it,
and
but then
yeah, and I mean I had a feeling that wasn't going to happen to me just because I had a first, second, and third place event
yeah,
in prelims.
you had such a truly dominant first 2 days, and then it's hard to
Yes,
fall out of anything if you just control your own destiny like you did, really.
yes, yes.
So you've done now pretty much, I think you've done every high level show there is. You've checked all, I don't know if there's really like in Strongman one we consider like you won the big one, obviously, but you've
Yeah,
also, like we mentioned, done PSL, Shaw, you've done
chaos.
the Chaos, the Nationals,
Yeah,
everything.
Arnold. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Arnold, everything. You've really done it all. What's the like what's the preparation for OSG being like a 3 day event versus like other shows that maybe like a PSL is a 1 day, like nationals, like what did your weekend look like for you?
Lots of eating.
Yeah.
Lots of eating. So thankfully the 3 day Shaw show prepped me for this 3 day OSG show. So I knew a little bit of how my body was going to react because I hadn't had a 3 day show since Arnold 2022. And I knew on day 3 in Arnold 2022, I felt like crap.
Yeah.
I wasn't really like sore or hurt or anything like that. I was just like, my like fight or flight mode, getting ready to perform, it was gone. It was
Yeah.
gone. I was fatigued. So, yes, because of Shaw, I knew what to do. After day 2 at Shaw, I was feeling really crappy again. And that's where it was recommended that I get an IV after day 2, just a simple IV. And that really did the trick. I woke up on day 3 feeling way better than I woke up feeling on day 2. Not that I didn't feel good waking up on day 2, but definitely felt better. So thankfully, I just knew that and did that as well, and that really prepped me for day 3. And it is, especially when you cut weight for competitions, and you're not eating as much. You're not. I mean, me myself, I'm not used to eating what I need to eat to perform well at a 3-day show. So that's where my nutrition coach comes into play and tells me exactly what to eat, when to eat, my carbs, when to eat my fats, because if I didn't have someone telling me to do that, I wouldn't have ate as much as I was supposed to eat because I was basically force feeding myself. And I had severe heartburn. It was like hard to sleep with all the heartburn and everything I was having, but I felt great,
Yeah.
fantastic competing, so
Yeah, I also like I don't know about you, but I sometimes like as an athlete find like you kind of get that tunnel vision, like there's a competition around you and you forget about those little things. Like as much as we like preach it,
but
like
yeah,
you
yeah,
want to like watch a show or like you're tired. So I mean having
yeah,
someone in your corner to remind you to eat and everything like that is probably a really good point on your end.
definitely.
I,
Yes.
I know I've got done with shows, I'm like, holy shit, like I've had like, an applesauce and a piece of candy, and it's like I would tell
Yeah,
clients not to do that, but here I
yeah,
am doing it because it's easy to just get distracted with, 500 athletes probably at
yeah.
OSG, so much stuff going
And
on.
normally I feel like most people don't eat a lot. I don't eat a lot when I'm performing during the day
Yeah.
and doing multiple events. It's like
Well,
a Rice Krispie and like a small peanut butter and jelly and like, maybe some gummies.
yeah. No, you're right. And also, well, this year was a lot different, and it was different for everyone because this was the first year them doing the new, like logistics setup, where it was, you do your event, do your second event, go home. First
Yeah.
event, before how it was like last year, probably could have eaten 4 meals in between events because it was like, so
Yes.
long, you have a long. So what did you
Yes.
think of the new layout?
I loved it.
Yeah, I think,
Yes, it was better, honestly, better to keep track of. I think everyone watching as well liked it better and knew when their athletes were going to go up and perform. And just for me personally, I perform better with back-to-back events without much
yeah,
rest. So that was just my preference. So I knew exactly how I needed to prepare for day one
yeah,
and day two. Day three was your very traditional way,
yeah,
with like probably 3 hours between event one, event two, and event three. But because I was already at OSG last year and kind of knew what I did wrong with that long break between the events, I knew how I needed to prepare differently because I think that's one thing that messed me up a little bit is that was, I'd say, one of my first shows where I had a long break like that between events and I didn't know, kind of was afraid of what to eat because I knew I had to lift again, and just getting tired and things like that.
yeah. Well, I think the new way is like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Like before, it's like you almost have to completely re-warm up, but also like you kind of
Yeah.
mentioned it, but like if I'm tuning in just to watch you, I know exactly when you're gonna go. So it's like better for
Yeah.
spectators, it's better for athlete performance. It's like
Hmm.
I referenced
Yeah.
it on another episode, but like last year, we do the opening ceremony, so everyone has to be there. And then I don't think the super heavyweight men did their first event till like 4 p.m. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, they could go back if they wanted to, but some guys are in Airbnbs far away. So I
Yeah.
definitely hope they keep up with that same because watching from home, it was awesome, you
Yeah.
know?
I think it worked well. And behind the scenes, everything went well too with the warm up area and people just checking in and letting us know the time frame and trying to collect athletes and, getting us in line. Everything went
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. What were some of your like I mean obviously you have your first place like in the log to start everything off, but like was there a moment for you that you had like over the weekend where you're like maybe it wasn't even a first place or maybe it was just something small, but did you have like a moment where you were like that like meant a lot to you? I mean it can also be a first place, but do you have like one or two moments where you look back and you're like that was really special? That was like for me at least.
Probably several. I
Yeah, yeah.
think definitely winning the log because I was only like heat three, and I'm just
Mhm.
like, okay, I just got to do my best. I don't know what anyone else is doing. I don't know what anyone else is doing behind me, And it's like I got five, and it's like I'm happy with that, but I'm like, oh no, there's better people coming up. They're gonna get six or seven, And then I saw that, and that was just like I, I was just speechless,
Yeah.
completely speechless. Um, I would say another one is my stone run. And I think a lot of people, just from watching, they probably realized watching my stone run that I didn't win because I didn't finish. And
Yeah.
Meg finished and Camilla finished. But that stone run meant a lot for me because that's one of my events that I've been working really, really hard on for since the start of my strongman career.
Yeah.
And in the past, stone events have been an event for me that have cost me a couple placings. So that was a huge PR for me, getting 5 stones. And I would have had 1 second left, almost loading the 6th stone. That was I was ecstatic, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
knew I knew I at least needed that, you know.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had no idea. You know, I was just like, I need to do my best. I know I need to get 5 stones. That's all I know right now. But I did it. I was like, I don't know if that was enough. I had no idea. I was only ahead by 2.5 points, and but I was still happy either way that I had one of my best stone runs, and I knew it wasn't going to drop me from like first to 10th place.
Yeah.
How it may have been in the past, but so that was really special, and I'd say coming off of the stage and getting my tacky off and CJ running up to me and being like, "You won, you won, you won." And it
Yeah.
was just like full of emotion. Like I didn't even have time to process it. Like I'm still in this adrenaline rush trying to get off my tacky and everyone's like, "You won."
Yeah. Well, that's like one thing is it's so funny when you're watching because for athletes that are on that final day and the final event, it's like the stone run, ends OSG historically. And it's just you do it and then nobody knows right away. So you kind of just like
Yeah.
awkwardly walk off the floor and you might be a world
Yeah.
champion. And only the
Yeah.
people that have like a huge like 12-point lead know they won. So it's
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
it's funny because it's funny that you mentioned that being like one of your moments because I think about that when I'm watching. It's like I think they won, but you just have to literally like it's like the same thing as like a local show. You just finish a stone run and then walk off the floor to like go take your tacky off, and you're like, I
Yeah.
may not be a world champion or like on the podium. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I
that's
think it was
funny
on the
that you
I
say
think it was
that.
on the live stream too. It might have been that event or my sandbag event where it was like I definitely didn't win those events, but I was like super excited. And they were on the
Yeah,
live stream. They're like, "Oh, I guess she's happy," and I'm like, "Yeah," because those used to be really bad events for me, and just
yeah.
being able to be competitive in those events means a lot.
Yeah, well, and you're a shorter athlete, even for being in the lightweight women's class. So, when you're a shorter athlete, stones typically are what stones and sandbag toss even
Yeah.
typically are what struggle with shorter athletes. And then those are both on the finals for you, and you still,
Yeah.
win. That's like incredible. That's awesome. It speaks to you being a well-rounded athlete, being able
Hmm.
to put it together for all 3 days. You really can't hide weaknesses, and you can't win OSG.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
that's really really cool. And just rewinding a little bit, so like on log, you said like I hit 5. I thought it was you were happy with it, but you thought people were gonna beat it. As a spectator, I almost thought, and I hate to say it like this because this might sound like arrogant, and I don't mean it to say like that because I'm a horrible presser relatively. But like I thought people underperformed on log versus what I thought people would.
I think so too. I do agree with you.
I mean,
Nothing against anyone.
no, no. I mean, I don't even think I would hit my Trump log at OSG, for my class. But like just what I was expecting winning numbers to be. And I think maybe part of it is like, you know, especially at the world level at OSG, you have a lot of more extreme water cuts. And then that being the first event, and there's like nerves. I don't really know. I mean, did the logs feel weird? Well, was there any insight you have?
From my opinion, that's my least favorite log ever.
Okay. So
I
many
think it's
people told
hard.
me that,
I think it's
yeah.
hard.
So did you press on just like the salt? You didn't press obviously on the monster Bardos, but you pressed on the
Yeah.
solid Bardos.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's the hardest log at our gym we have to press. And I think
Hmm.
as a smaller athlete, it has that really thin like base, and it sits so
Yes.
heavy on my chest.
Yes.
Does
The
that make
center.
sense?
It's one of the only logs that I've seen to where the center is so heavy and it's solid.
Right. And
You see most logs, they're hollow. whole thing is hollow.
Yeah, well, if you press a
Oh,
pit bull log, which a
yeah.
lot of people have at their gyms, it's just one line of metal.
Yeah.
This one is so thick, and for me, I feel like when I'm pressing in, I mean, you can probably relate being in a lightweight class, but it just feels like feels like it's literally crushing my chest.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I heard that from a lot of people that they had a hard time with the logs. So that's why I was
Yeah.
curious.
The
You know,
pressing's a little bit harder, but definitely, yeah, definitely the clean for me gets me. But even though it is my least favorite log, I did not get the prep with that during this prep, unfortunately. I did get the prep with that all of PSL prep, and then my gym back home, Area 56. We have that log as well. So I've had lots of experience on it. So thankfully for me, it was just part of like muscle memory. They did have one in the warm up when I did like one or two. I'm like, okay, I remember now. I remember.
yeah.
So
Yeah. What was your experience? I mean, outside of performance, obviously this year was best case scenario, but what did you think of like Wisconsin versus Charleston? Like the athlete experience, like warm up area. Like I know last year one of the main complaints was like our athlete area. I wasn't there, so like just
yeah,
curious how it was this year versus last for you.
the the venue was a lot better this year. I think for the athletes, it was very very big. And I mean, our we had like a hangout area. It was one big circle. We had like a hangout area, then we had like a warm up area, and I mean, they had places upstairs to get like drinks and food and everything, and just keeping everyone separated with like bringing everyone on the east end, exiting on the west end, completely separate area for like chiropractic work, things like that. Um, so honestly, I don't have any complaints with that. It was very nice. There's plenty of room, and especially with two weight classes going back to back, I felt like there was more time and better use of our time with warming up because of that as well, compared to last year. And even though 'cause I feel like I got lost. The area was so big, but I felt like they did a really good job of going to all the areas that we might be at to collect us and tell us,
Oh,
"Oh,
okay.
time to warm up. You got 10 minutes left," and everything like that.
Yeah,
Because
that's
last year, yeah, it was just right behind the stage,
yeah.
as in hangout, warm up, everything was just right there behind the stage in like a square.
Yeah.
So
I felt like last year, like I was talking to a couple guys about this. Did you feel like last year was like awkwardly dark in the arena? Like the lighting. I don't know if you can remember, but I just remember it being so dark. And then this year, like on camera,
yeah,
it looked a lot brighter, but I wasn't sure if they
yeah.
just always do that because last year was the only year I've been there. So I was just curious. But so when did you do your first strongman competition?
September 2018. It was Strong Again 1
Oh
at
wow, so it was the first
Area
ever one.
56. Yeah, I
Okay.
just did it for shits and giggles.
Yeah. So what was your athletic background or just like what were you so you did it Strong Getting One, which if you're from PA, that's like been one of our awesome shows. Like I think almost everyone's done one at least. I know I have.
Yeah, yeah.
And Tyler does like an amazing job with that show. I tell a lot of people that. But like so, you sign up for it, the first ever Strong Getting. What were you doing like before that?
Mostly powerlifting stuff. I
Okay.
did my first powerlifting competition in 2014
Oh, okay. So you've
and
been
was still,
powerlifting for a while.
yes, yeah.
What was have you done a powerlifting meet since like you've been in strongman? You just
No,
that's what
don't
I did
have,
too.
yeah, yeah.
I haven't really had the urge to be honest. I just
No, no. As soon as I found Strongman, I was like, this is it. I don't
yeah, because
have a
I
care in
did.
the world to go back.
Do you say you did your first meet in 2014? I think
Yep.
I think that
I
was
was,
when I think that was the year I did an RPS meet RPS Palooza in 2014. I think that was my first
okay.
ever. So yeah, you're from the area, so other people understand like
Yes. Yeah.
RPS is around here more. But yeah, that's funny because I haven't really had the itch too much either. It's just randomly did it. So you were doing powerlifting, and what got you into powerlifting? What was your background before that? Like, how did you start into strength
Uh,
training?
so I was a senior in high school in 2014. So,
Okay,
yeah, so I was 18 when I did my first powerlifting show. I started lifting weights when I was 15. So I did volleyball, Started volleyball when I was 13, and then went into varsity volleyball. I did track and field. I was thrower, but honestly, lifting weights and stuff, I wasn't too into throwing. I was actually like pretty skinny back in high school, so I actually really enjoyed running, and I was a hurdler. So yeah, they redid our whole high school strength and conditioning program and got all new trainers and everything. And we were just, even females, everything, we were forced to go to the weight room. And I started in the summer before my sophomore year in the weight room. I just loved it
Yeah.
because, even though I played all these sports, I wouldn't say I was naturally gifted at any sport. I worked really, really hard. And when I found the weight room and weights, I was like, I'm really good at this. And my high school at the time used to have a powerlifting team and a powerlifting coach, and they were slowly getting out of that because they got all new trainers and everything. So that's where I did learn from the old coaches and stuff. So on the powerlifting, how to powerlift and stuff. So that's how I got into it.
Yeah.
And people can't believe when I say that I've been lifting weights for almost 15 years, and they're like, "You look like you're 20." Well, yeah, I mean, I'm only 29, but it's like I started very, very young, and I never stopped. I've been
Yeah.
super competitive ever since I started.
Yeah. I always ask people because it's so fun. It's so fun to hear in strongman, like everyone comes from something different, you know? It's like, and everyone has a different avenue into the sport. So I always think it's interesting. You know, a lot of times it is powerlifting, how we found it, but sometimes there's
Yeah,
those. So yeah, that I mean that's very so then you said what, 2018 was your first strongman comp. And so 2024
and
you're
I only did that because I moved into that town and
Oh,
started going to
really?
area.
Oh, so
I
you weren't
started
you
going
weren't
there.
origin were you originally from the same like area? You kind of moved a little bit, or were you from farther
I was
away?
about a half an hour
Oh, okay.
away from where I grew up.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I was just looking for a gym, and they're having their first strawman competition, and I was like, well, why not? It's their first one. Let's support it. Let's see what the
Yeah.
strawman's all about. So
Yeah. That's pretty cool, like how it comes like full circle where like obviously now you're at the very top, but like even at a lesser like when you became more and more competitive, like you're then head judging at that show and things like that.
yeah,
It's just cool to like how it all comes around, you know. But so from when you did your first strongman comp in 2018 to now, and you've done a lot in between. Do you know how many? Are you one of the people that knows how many shows they've done, or are you just like it's a lot?
no,
I
no, I
recently
don't
counted
know.
mine. That's the only reason because I was curious because I asked someone else and I didn't know, and I was curious.
I don't think I've done. I mean, I've done one in 2018. I did. I think maybe two in 2019.
Yeah,
2020 was COVID, and I did one.
yeah,
I did one because all of them were like canceled. I did nationals in 2020. 2021, I did like two or something. 2022, I did two.
yeah,
20, and then 2023 is when it started to pick up, and I started, starting in the pro division stuff. I did PSL, I did the Arnold again, OSG, things like that. So, I mean, honestly, before 2023, probably the most I did was like two strongman shows a year.
yeah. Well, it's like
Because, and I think, not to interrupt you, but I think
no,
it's
no, you're
because
good.
I already had such a long background of lifting to where I was past those newbie games of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
competing like six times a year. You know, I
Yeah,
mean, because that's what I did when I started powerlifting.
yeah, yeah. No, for sure. But for you, being like a world-class athlete now looks so much different than 2018, where like someone who was at your level in 2018 didn't have that many opportunities. And now like it's pretty cool to see,
Yeah,
like, especially like in the women's classes, for you as a lightweight women, if you would tell if your 2018, if your 2014 self would tell your 2018 self, there's this much opportunity with like cash prizes, like traveling overseas, like, because you look at it, you rattled off, you did the Shaw Classic, the first ever Shaw Classic for lightweights. You just won official strongman games, pro strongman league, chaos overseas. Like, it's just crazy now to look at how much opportunity there is, if you would look
yeah,
back at 2018 to now, it was like nationals, and then like OSG was just really getting going, and that
Yeah,
like
what was it like
everything.
20? Was it around 2017? First
Yeah,
OSG?
I think the first OSG was 2017, and I
Yeah,
someone can correct me, I might be wrong, but I think wasn't the first year called like North American Champ? I think it was
yeah.
like
It
called
wasn't. It wasn't
something.
called official. It's yeah.
Yeah,
I do agree with you. I don't know what it was.
yeah, but yeah, so I mean, it's obviously like, whether people agree with it or not. I think it's undeniable that official strongman games is the title that every weight class athlete wants.
Yeah,
Like I think it's undeniable. Every person in every class will say whoever wins official strongman games is the world champion for that class for that year, and I totally agree with that. It gets the most participation, gets the most
yes,
um, most countries. I didn't hear
yes.
a country count for this year, but I know the
I
previous year
didn't.
was really, really impressive. So I'm sure it was very comparable again this year.
Yeah. I
Because
mean,
what you had Lynn on.
I think the 64s bring a lot from other countries. I mean, we have Mexico, we have Canada, we have New Zealand, we have Australia, we have the UK.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
right there's five different
Yeah,
countries.
and like
Yeah.
within like if you have like Wales, like I mean it's
Oh,
crazy.
yeah. Yeah. Well, if you
Like
get more
yeah, like
into
you
the
you get
UK,
into that
yeah,
UK, you know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
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 so no, I mean, and like I said, your guys' class is really, really fun to watch. I think it's crazy to see the numbers. Like, what your guys' log was 180,
yeah,
right? I mean, it's
yeah,
like when you really start to look at like, and I hate to be that person that's like body weight versus, because I think every class is, but you guys are weighing in 140 point what 4 pounds
yeah,
with kilos. So, and your log is 180. It's like I think it's super cool. And then also, girls are super athletic. Where like the medley times were crazy. Like
yeah. Oh my gosh,
the
that was
medley was
nuts.
the medley was from a viewer. The medley was the craziest thing because there it was such little room for error. Where like when we did our OSG recap show, you start looking at the scoreboard and you're like, man, if you got 39 seconds on the medley, you might have dropped like 9 points
Hmm.
because so many people got and by like a second and a half. Like so many people got between 37 and a half to 39 where you're at. Whereas literally the difference of like 10 whole placings. It was crazy.
Yes, yes.
What did you think of the medley?
I don't know about your opinion, but my opinion is it definitely needs to be heavier. I feel like when you start to see 10 people within like a hundredth of a second difference, um, and I think it needs to be heavier so that doesn't happen and you can see a little bit of a difference between the athletes. Because
Yeah.
then it's just a sprint game. Like, oh, who can just sprint the fastest?
Yeah, and I mean, I totally agree with you. It's like that's one of even the things I say at like a local show. If it's like if every like you do like a duck walk at a local show, and everyone's like 9.8, 9.9, 10.2. It's like, well, that just comes down to human error with like hitting
Yes,
that stopwatch. And obviously it's
yes,
a little bit different at OSG, but yeah, that's kind of my point. Is like when you have 10 to 15 athletes within 3 seconds. It's like, weight should probably be a little bit different realistically, or something
yeah,
should be different because it clearly didn't allow to separate athletes, you know.
yes. I did like the sled push over the sled pull.
Oh,
Definitely
that
was
was that was my
different.
next question. It was
And
a different
yes, I love
variation.
that. It was
Yeah.
different. I think, I mean, compared to last year with the sled pull and this year with the sled push, I think the sled push actually is kind of heavy. I mean,
Oh, really?
we all looked like we were going very fast. But I mean, when I did the medley last year, even with that rucksack, I don't remember being as tired as I was this year. Like my lungs were definitely still burning from that sled hours after I did it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is,
No, that's a good observation. A question I had was, because everyone did that weird when I expected everyone to have like that prowler push, like arms
that's what I
straight
thought.
out. Yeah.
Mhm.
Was that just like a one of the things?
There's too much friction.
Yeah. So was it one of
I
those things
think
you guys all just figured out in the warm-up room, like together?
I mean, I don't know what anyone else did. But yeah, I was like in the back with it, watching other people. We were going about it, and I thought I was going to push it like a regular sled push, and I tried to, and it wasn't budging. There was a lot of friction.
Yeah,
So we did it to where it was, it kind of reminds you of like a football tackle where you're just like
exactly.
putting your chest up into it and trying to get that more like weight, I guess,
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
front end of
Yeah,
it,
like you're
on the front
leveraging all
end.
your weight into it
On
versus like arms
Yeah,
straight out. Yeah.
yeah. And so, I mean, like I said, I don't know what everyone else did. If I guess some of us just obviously kind of went first after we did that in the back, and then they saw us, and it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it was well because like the very first flight came out for that, and I was like, oh shit, they're doing it different. And then I just saw everyone doing it. There was a couple people that did it.
well, because there was the way that I wanted to do it, and other people, someone told me that it wasn't allowed, and so that's why everyone
With
was
the
their
hands like
arms
way
down.
like with the hands
You
like
could not you couldn't have your hands up here
oh
because
okay.
we all wanted to again get that effect where you're kind of pushing up into it, but they said no hands up here.
Oh okay.
So
Yeah, I
that's
think
why they didn't say
yeah.
you couldn't have your body on it. So that's why we all pushed our body into it and just kind of held down below. So basically our body was the one pushing into it.
Yeah. Yeah, they mentioned that on the live stream that
Yeah.
you weren't allowed. Yeah, it seemed like they added some new things this year with like the car pound. I guess that must have been an issue in the
Yeah,
past.
yeah. I didn't know until I went out there because they said, just try not to bang on the car, things like that, like all that jazz in the rules meeting. And then I line up for the yoke, and I see this like 5 second penalty, and I'm like, when did this happen? And someone because I actually saw a video from the Masters athletes, someone like banging on the car,
Oh
and
yeah.
because the Masters went before us, and they're like, I just heard through the grapevine where it's like we think that's why the 5 second penalty started is
Yeah.
because some athletes still forgot that they weren't supposed to bang on the car.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But yeah, I get it. And I mean, I guess if you want to really make sure it doesn't happen, you have to have a pretty aggressive penalty, which like 5 seconds
yeah,
on the yoke run is, that can
yeah,
drop you God knows how much.
cool, yeah.
So what's the feeling of like the car yoke versus like a normal yoke?
Um, I would say definitely requires more stability more than anything. I love yoke. I was very, very excited. I'm very good at yoke. I mean, we carried a 620 yoke at Chaos, and
Yeah.
so I was pretty pumped for this, but I was very, very nervous for this because I knew the weight distribution was going to be very weird. Um, and also we weren't allowed to pick the cars or anything when we got our heights. We were only allowed to squat under it,
Hmm.
so that made me a little nervous that I was getting the correct height.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it really comes down to there are a couple things you have to change is making sure you're getting the correct height. Depending on where you carry a normal yoke on your back, are you going to carry it the same way? Are you going to carry it differently? Because the back of the car is longer and they put the weight in the back of the car. Um, some people just don't have that good brace with the yoke. They kind of wobble and stuff, and you can get away with it with a regular yoke, but you have to watch and be careful. Sometimes you can't get away with that with a car yoke, because then your tires start to hit and things like that.
Yeah.
So I definitely think I could have went faster on the yoke, but I wanted to be safe, so I did a slow pick, took a couple steps just to see where my balance was and my stability, and that's when I started to send it. So I took the little bit safer route just because I didn't want to drop it. But it
Yeah.
definitely is a different feel.
Yeah, you saw a lot of people. I mean, it's you like you mentioned like not getting to really pick the car and like walk with it at all. Like, when you typically get a yoke height, you can take a couple steps, things like
Yeah,
that. You could
yeah,
tell because there was a lot of people that like they would take that first step and their tires were already hitting, and like skidding the whole way. So I think that
yeah.
definitely affected some people and I mean
Yes,
it's the
yes.
same playing field for everyone, so
Exactly. Yeah,
got to figure it out.
yeah.
That's a beautiful thing about the sport. Um, but yeah, is there anything else from the weekend that, stood. I mean, we kind of touched on a lot of it. What was the wrecking ball hold like? Obviously, you kind of mentioned. I know it's I mean, it's not a touchy subject because you won, but that was obviously such a weird and new event. And it wasn't. I think it's a cool idea, I guess, but I mean, it was very boring to watch. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
like I mean,
yeah,
because you had some crazy performances where people were holding over 2 minutes, and it's
yeah,
like, okay, that's cool, but we're just watching you stand there, um,
yeah.
you know,
Watching us make weird faces. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Watching everyone pass out.
yeah. Everyone
Um,
passed out for
yeah.
sure.
I think it was cool in a sense. It's different. I think that um I don't know, just with the way like with the rules of it. Maybe I don't want to say that they weren't like uh strict on it,
Well, they
but I just
definitely, they
feel
definitely
like
weren't, they definitely weren't strict from what I saw, because like,
I didn't get this. I mean, I only saw a couple people before
yeah,
me,
yeah,
but it's like I just hearing things, and I feel like what was said and like the rules and stuff, and maybe just like what some people were doing. I don't know. I feel like it's if they want to do it again, I feel like it just needs to be a little bit better with what you can and cannot do, in my
yeah,
opinion. But
yeah. No, I
it is
definitely
what
get
it is.
that
Yeah,
sense. Yeah, I get. It's a cool event. There are those events in strongman where it's like there's a lot of gray area. There's always gray
yeah.
area in strongman, but there's those where it's like, you
That's a good way to
can,
put it.
you
Definitely,
can
that
kind of like
was
have it
yeah,
hiked over your knees, and you could see some people were clearly like squatted with it like all on their quads clearly, and it wasn't even turning into a grip event. And
yeah,
it's like, like a front hold at a local show. It's like, ah, shit, like, am I below?
yeah,
Am I too high? But that
yeah.
event,
Yeah.
it's you get kinks and stuff like
Again,
that.
I didn't watch everybody, so
Yeah,
in my opinion, I didn't see people like actually like squatting. But it's like,
yeah,
okay, you see some people straight up, you see some people leaning way back, you see some people where they're just pushing under it, not squatting
yeah,
down, but pushing under it more. And it's like, okay, there's so many different things going on where
yeah,
it's like I don't know what's right and what's wrong, I
yeah, yeah,
guess.
yeah. Yeah, no, it makes sense. But so
I
you're
one thing I want to
yeah, yeah,
say,
go ahead.
but I think the weights are a little weird
Oh, really? You
because
mean like the actual like the weight that was
I mean
chosen,
they
or the actual weight
yeah
like
the
underneath?
yeah the weights that were chosen.
Oh, okay.
I mean for the women they only had 450 and 5, and the men they had 550 and 6. So let's compare my weight class, 140 pounds.
450. Oh, I see.
Our Trump axle. Look at our Trump axle. Our Trump axle is 440.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know it's
Yeah.
straps, everything like that. But it's like, think about what, and I know we don't have to deadlift it, but just think about comparison of our size with our Trump weight deadlift. And let's just compare CJ's class because I know his class.
Yeah.
198, 90 kilo man, their Trump deadlift was 700, and and they're 200 pounds, and they only got to hold 550 in their hands.
Yeah,
They're only
no.
holding they're only holding 100 pounds more when obviously they're deadlifting way more than
And they weigh 50
us.
50
And
more
then
pounds.
yeah, it's
60 more
just the
pounds.
kind of weird. I felt like if you were a lighter weight with what they picked, you had the disadvantage of
Yeah.
it because there was some I don't remember the classes offhand, but a lot of people in the men's class had that 550. So uh, if you were an 80 kilo man, you had the disadvantage of holding that 550 over a 90 kilo, or I don't know if it still went on to the 105 kilo class
Yeah,
or
yeah.
not. Do you see what I mean? It's just
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
No, no, I get it. There were a couple things, and like I said, they did. I don't want this to come off like I'm like a hater or anything,
No, I think
but
this is
like,
just being like our opinion and like
yeah,
how
yeah.
things can improve. And because
Well,
it is a first time event too.
yeah, that's true. That's 100%. But there was something else with weights that caught my attention as like a promoter that I would be curious to talk to the promotion of OSG. But like the Trump axle deadlift, right? So wouldn't you have the heavier trump axle for your class, then be the lighter deadlift for the next class. So you don't have to add or subtract weight. All you do is just switch the bar and then move the next one. And then it's a revolving door because they were so close in weight anyway that to
Yeah.
me it was a no-brainer where it's like, okay, just have it a revolving door where it's just where instead of adding weight to every lane and every bar, it's the next classes that you know what I'm saying? Just push the
Yeah.
bar
No, I do
forward.
like that. Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to me because like there was one example that was like blew my mind where it was like, okay, we're adding 20 pounds to every one when it could have just been the
Yeah.
next class
Little
up. And it
switcheroo.
would just
Yeah.
could maybe go a little bit smoother. And maybe it was just too late in the game when they thought of it and they're like, oh shit, you know,
Yeah.
next year. There's just like little things like that that kind of were perplexing to me, but it is what it is. I thought the weights as a whole seemed trying to think. The medley was one I made a note for because to me that seemed too light because you had such a jumble of mess in the middle and the well in the top, I guess. Um, but everything else, I'm trying to think like log, you know, winning at 5 reps at a world level at the Trump weight, that's pretty appropriate. That's a heavy ass log. The
Hmm.
deadlift, there was only the best deadlifters were getting high reps. Um,
Hmm.
Everything else, you know, the wrecking ball hold, that weird first event, we talked about it, but everything else seemed really appropriate as far as weights to me.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But so as a world champion, what's like do you have I mean, I don't want to take it like you're not like just enjoying your time as a champion, but like do you have like a schedule for what's next? Do you have like bucket list strongman items like a show you really want to win like in 2025?
I feel like it's funny that you say that because now that I mean I won the show that everyone wants to win, it's like I feel like winning other shows doesn't mean as much. But obviously, you know, I want to win everything. I have a very, very competitive mindset. So I would say winning this, I definitely want to come back next year and try to win again. Um, my original goal was to move up a weight class next year, and that is still something I definitely want to do. I did a lot of shows in the past 6 months. I mean, I only did four in the past 6 months, but they were heavy, heavy shows. They were all pro
Yeah.
shows, all,
Well,
all
yeah,
big
when
weight
you're at
cuts.
yeah.
So
Yeah, when you're at your
that's why I
level,
was like, yeah,
you know.
that's why
Sorry
I
to
was
cut
like, I
you
want
off.
to. That's why I was like, I want to take a little bit of a break next year. I don't want to do four shows again within a 6 month time span. Maybe let's move up a weight class and get our toes wet and stuff. But so definitely, I would say I don't see any plans before PSL. I'd love PSL 73 to be my first 73 show, get my feet wet. Um, Shaw was a great time. That's a great in between weight class show too. It's that 150 mark, you know. So I don't know about that yet because with my plans next year, I don't know where I'm going to live at next year because this year I was able to drive to it. Uh, and then after that, honestly, nothing much more than actually didn't have a plan to do OSG next year, but I won, and I was like,
Yeah.
I have that competitive mindset where it's like, well, I want to do it again next year, and I want to win. Um, but like a little background info is I've been a 140 athlete for a long time. I'm in 148 powerlifting for a couple of years. Right after I moved up from the 132 class, so I've been in this weight range for a very, very, very long time, and I'm getting too big. Unfortunately, I came in the leanest I've ever been in my entire life for OSG, and thankfully, I don't have any injuries, and definitely did not obviously affect my performance. But the water cut and the sweating went very, very well. It should go well for an athlete that's very lean. But because I've gained so much muscle in 2024, it's been a great year of gaining muscle and getting strong and everything. It's the dieting part that comes down to of how far can I diet down to where I'm comfortable with sweating that amount off because every show in 2024 I came in heavier and heavier and heavier, and 1 to 2 pounds each show coming in heavier makes a difference.
For
you know,
sure.
so that's definitely why I need to take some time off and just put some more fat on me and reset my metabolism and be like, okay, I might have 1 or 2 64 shows in me next year, but not 4 back to back. Definitely not.
Right. Well, that's cool. Well, we'll all be looking forward to seeing what you do, next year, and hopefully seeing you repeat as a world champion. And people that want to follow Krystal on Instagram, and we have it up if you're watching on YouTube. It's right under her name, but trap_queen_A56. So
Yep.
give her a follow. Obviously,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, I just want to give a shout out. The A56 is obviously the gym that I used to go to, Area
yeah, yeah,
56. So, if you're in the East Coast, definitely check out Area 56. And 580 is just a
yeah,
nice hour and a half drive.
yeah, yeah.
And shout out to my coach too, Tyler Petro, who owns Area 56. I feel like a lot of people, everyone, is asking who my coach is and who coached me and all this stuff. And I've had him since day one, and I feel like he's not very well known. And he's just, for me, we do well together, and I
Yeah.
don't see myself ever getting a new coach anytime soon. So yeah, he does a lot of online training too. So, and then, sorry, I don't know if this is like okay, just putting people in there,
No,
but
no, of course. That's
obviously, CJ as well.
yeah,
His Instagram, he's done my nutrition for since the beginning of 2023, so almost 2 years now.
yeah,
So he has his Instagram and his website. So yeah, those are all of the people who
yeah.
have helped me in my journey, and would like to make them known and give them a
Yeah, of
shout out.
course. Yeah, if you listen to the pod regularly, CG, you can, and if you haven't, you can go back to listen. CG, I think, might be one of our most reoccurring guests
Yeah,
because
yeah,
he obviously had his big win at the Chaos this past year, and I think CJ's really, really he's a good person, but he's super knowledgeable, especially not just in training, but with nutrition, water cuts, everything like that. So he's a great follow.
yes,
He's
yes.
He's an incredible athlete. He's come up from the 80s now to be one of the best 90s in the world. So, yeah, definitely follow CJ as well and go listen to some of his old episodes on here. So, yeah, of course, shout out whoever you want. You're on the podcast, so that's why
Thanks.
you're here. But thank you so much for the time, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks. Appreciate it.